Hello and welcome back to Knits and Bolts Costume Design, and if you're new here, I'm Rebecca. My adventure this time is going to be creating a Bootstrap Fashions dress form. Come along with me and see how we do and making Marty.
Hello everybody, and meet Marty. She's my dress form. And if you can't tell from my friend here, she doesn't exactly meet my body double size. So I am going to use Bootstrap Fashions dress form pattern, and I'm going to make her more closer to my dress size.
Alright, so I went on to Bootstrap Fashions website and I pulled up their dress form portions, and I plugged in my measurements and picked my body shapes and all of that from their each one of their little options, and wasn't too long and I received an email with my pattern. So my next step here is to put this pattern together and get things ready to cut out. Okay, so I have my pattern pieces all cut out. So that's the main body of the dress form. These pieces here in the middle are the cardboard pieces, and then this is the center support pieces. Now this is if you were just using a pole. Now I am eliminating this from the pattern because I'm just going to slip my body double over the top of the dress form I already have. So I am deviating from the pattern just a little bit. The fabric I'm going to be using for my dress form is going to be cotton duck, so it'll be sturdy and durable. And so all I need to do now is get the pattern pinned on and get this cut out. I'm not sure if you can see this, but I took my pattern pieces and I drew them out on my fabric. I marked each of the clipping points, all of the markings. I labeled each one of them. I have a steamer, so I'll be able to like steam off the wording, but it'll at least give me the markings I need until I get this together. And so I did order the pattern with the seam allowance on it, so that is included in this drawing. And over here on the sewing machine, I took a piece of masking tape and I marked off my 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So that'll help guide in keeping my seam allowances together. Next is to get this cut out and again get the sewing started. I thought I'd give you an update on where I am on construction. So I've got the center back and side backs together. I have the center front and side front lowers together with the center cup and side cup. So my next step will be to get the cup sewn in, and then we'll go in putting the lower half and the upper half together. So lots of pins for the cup area to make sure it all stays. But when the pattern tells you to clip, you know, every so often, I think they said it was 1 5/8 inch on each seam allowance and press them open. Do follow that, because I'm finding that that helps with the curvature of everything really well. So far, I haven't had any like boo-boos or snafus with construction on where things go. The markings have all been good. So I'm going to get these cups sewn in, and then we'll see what our next steps are going to be. Got all of my pieces sewn together into 4 major pieces. I even have the arms size stay stitch. Here's a little update. I have the center front sewn here, and the next step is to sew the shoulder seams together and then stay stitch the neckline. So I'll get that done and then we'll come back and see what our next steps are. Okay, the next step was to add the neck piece. So I've got that on, I've got my seam pressed open. So the next thing was to pin together the back seam and get that all sewn up, and then we'll go on from there. Alright, so we're on to sewing in the armholes. Now the outside armhole cover piece was really simple, sewing that in on the sewing machine. Now adding the cardboard spacer and this interfacing piece was a little bit cumbersome on my sewing machine, so I opted to do this portion by hand. So I will get this all sewn around and then we'll go on to our next step. Alright, now I'm on the bottom piece. So this is the bottom of the dress form and it has a zipper on both sides. And so I've got it pinned in place. I'm going to get that sewn on and then we'll work on getting this onto the dress form and getting it stuffed to my measurements. Okay, so I now have my form all completely sewed together. I've got my zippers in the bottom, so I just have this shell. So one thing I am doing differently on mine is I'm not doing the center support. I am going to be using my dress form piece and I'm going to be putting that inside. I'm going to be using my fiber fill to pad Marty out to my measurements. So it's time to get that process started. So my first step is that I made a rough marking at the top here, and there's a hole in the top of this, and here is the little knob post to the top of my dress form. So I'm going to insert that in there to hold this in place to start with. Alright, so I've got it partially stuffed, and I'm going to have to make a Joann's run because I don't have enough fill to do my hips and area. So I will have my waist will be right about here because I have a B belly. So I have a bump and then my waist and then I have another bump. So and part of this hanging down here is the cover. So it'll be a little bit shorter. But I got to make an emergency run. And meet Marty, a Bootstrap Fashions body double dress form.